MindFit, what it does to not only go in and repair parts of the brain that have been damaged through a lifetime of neglect, trauma, and abuse, which could be just an act of mind, can break down the body very quickly, but also to enhance performance and to create the greatness of life. A lot of times we get stuck in patterns of behavior, and the patterns of behavior create the rut that we find ourselves year and year after year, where it seems like the same stuff's happening, different people, different places, but the same things keep unfolding in our lives. We are Transcendence Wellness Center. We're a very different type of wellness center. I've worked with hundreds of doctors throughout my career. My career is in biochemistry, specialized nutrition, and the intuitive arts. And I've worked with a lot of chiropractors and MDs over the years. And what I've always been searching for is that underlying root cause. That underlying cause of suffering, pain, weight, anything you could possibly imagine that is kind of blocking you from your ideal life is where my passion is. My personal journey was with my own physical health. I was very ill. I was a child of abuse. I had extreme eating disorders, so I was obese most of my life. And no matter how much I exercised or ate well, I never could change those patterns in my brain. And that's when I really dove into biochemistry. What we do here at Transcendence is we educate. We're not into necessarily providing a ton of healing modalities, but more of self-education and anything that would contribute to you being able to take complete power over your life and change your life. Because at the end of the day, your home should be your sanctuary and you should be your guru. So hopefully tonight this class will kind of enlighten you on your body. We know more about outer space than we know about our own bodies. We know more about underwater. So today I want to take you into your biochemistry and kind of explain why we do the crazy things that we do and how come we can't stop ourselves from patterns of behavior, or how come we can't shift our performance level of life. How come we can't create the things that we want? What's stopping us? Well, the truth of it is I want to get into your basic biochemistry. Your brain is fantastic, obviously. It's too much to explain in 1 hour, so I'm going to kind of break it down into 3 parts. You have a thinking brain, you have a feeling brain, and you have a primal brain, okay? And your thinking brain is the one that receives the information. It's the creative vortex. It is the frontal lobe right here. And this is where we receive information, and then we move it into the back of our brain where we feel. Now, the feel is what talks to the body, okay? So every time we have a feeling, we actually have a chemical reaction. So every thought you think triggers a hormone every single time. And now women come to me and say, I have a hormone imbalance. I say, no, you have a thought imbalance. So basically what's happening is the brain and the body start to have a miscommunication with each other based on things that have gone on in life, trauma, right? Physical trauma, emotional trauma, chemical trauma. Then we have genetics that we add in there. And physical could be the form of an accident, okay? And that's going to disconnect the brain and the body from communicating to each other properly. Could be a chemical imbalance, being exposed to bad water over your life, or metal fillings in your teeth, or just not great food. Numerous things. Long time pharmaceuticals, you name it. Chemical imbalance can create a dysfunction between the brain and the body. And then the emotional issues. Being bullied in school, not being, the athlete that we wanted to be, not being thin enough or pretty enough. These things cause emotional traumas in the body, and they set the tone for what we call chronic fight or flight. Has everybody heard of fight or flight? Yes? Okay. We're going to be talking a lot about that today, because that is basically the reason why you are not living the life that you want. Your brain is perpetually in fight or flight, which means it's talking to the body and telling the body that you are in survival. When you're in survival, your safety mechanisms are on. What happens is your metabolism slows down. Your immune function slows down. Your heart speeds up, it slows down, determines on where you are. And this can all be happening just through thought. Okay, so we don't actually need to be chased by a lion in order to move into this feeling state. We could be worried about a bill, or our kids, or our job, or anything, and move into fight or flight. The brain does not know the difference whether it's happening for real or if it's imagined. And the reason we know that is because we can close our eyes and have a thought of something that kind of gives us the creeps and have a chemical and emotional reaction. Just by thinking about something, our body will respond. So we know that the brain doesn't care whether it's real or it's just experiencing it through observation. Like a movie. You're watching a movie and it's a love story and you begin to cry. Is it really happening? No. But you're having the experience that it is, so your body is having an experience as well. Emotionally, chemically, physically. Does that make sense? So the nervous system, and you always hear chiropractors talk about the nervous system. The nervous system is the brain's tail. The nervous system is the central communication system between the brain and the body. When anything goes imbalanced with the nervous system, the whole system goes haywire. Sometimes you could be extra hungry, and what's really happening is your body's dehydrated. Okay? But your brain and your body are not talking to each other properly because the signals are crossed. Think about your brain like a computer. And it has a virus. Anytime it has a trauma involved in the thinking process. So the thought comes in, the brain tells the body how to react. That's exactly how simple it is. It's not that complicated. But a series of events takes place in the biochemistry when we get stressed out. Now, what could be a stressful thought? Somebody cuts us off in traffic. A cop gets behind us, right? We get a phone call from someone in our family who's ill. We're struggling financially. We've got a health issue. We're overwhelmed with our time management. It could be anything. It doesn't necessarily mean your life is in danger. But the brain will communicate to the body as if it's a danger, just like if you were being chased by a lion. And what actually happens in the biochemistry is the sympathetic nervous system takes over, and that is the left side of your nervous system, and that's when the body gets ready for attack. Okay? Adrenaline is released. Cortisol is released to help slow everything down, which is that stress hormone that makes us a little chubby. The immune system stops working. Okay? Digestion halts. Your heart begins to race. Your blood actually begins to pump more in your appendages outside so that you have the energy and an oxygenated blood to run. That is what's taking place when your brain moves into fight or flight. Now, on the other side of your nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, your breath becomes shallow. Okay? Your immune system, again, halts. Your blood flow changes direction. Your detoxing or your immune system stops altogether. Your body stops digesting food. And reproduction becomes not important. Okay? So when a healthy person is constantly going back and forth, that would be a healthy person. Someone who is under stress, handles stress, and moves back into the healing side of their nervous system. That's why when you see Olympic athletes training, every basic need is taken care of them. So they have no stress. Their needs are all met, they're not in survival, so that they can completely focus and giving that performance everything. Okay, so they're actually using their fight or flight for actually becoming the best athlete that they could become, or the greatest painter that they could become. Anything. So you can actually use this part of your nervous system for creation, but most of the time we're using it to break the body down because we're stuck in chronic fight or flight. Now let's think about thought. We don't just have one fearful thought and we're good. We get cut off in traffic and we dwell on it and we fester on it. And then we go home and we tell people about it. And then we talk about it some more. And then we worry about how stressed we are about something. So we never actually get back over into rest and reboot. And we stay in fight or flight. That means constantly releasing adrenaline. Constantly releasing cortisol. Right? So if our digestion is pretty much turned off throughout different parts of our day, our immune system is shut down, wouldn't that make sense why everybody has allergies? Right? Can't fight off the dangers of the enemy which is the purpose of the immune system. Because my thoughts are always taking me worrisome places. So if my thoughts are taking me worrisome places, my body can't shift over into the health, reboot, repair aspect, and it has to constantly stay in protection or survival. Okay? Now, how we break this down through the mind and why we have the MindFit is throughout my career in biochemistry, I've done a lot of emotional counseling. A lot of emotional counseling. I've done a lot of chemical counseling. I've done a lot of physical counseling. And what that looks like basically is healing the physical body, rebuilding tissue through, could be anything from physical therapy to exercise, nutritionally getting the body detoxed and healthy, and then emotionally going through and actually cleaning up traumas of the past, of the childhood or whatever is stuck in that timeline. And by doing that, we really can move out of fight or flight. Now, another name for fight or flight in our society, especially in the United States, this is actually more rampant in the United States than anywhere else, is most everyone has PTSD. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a bomb going off next to you and you are moved into a stress response. A bomb could be the bill you didn't expect, your child getting sick. It could be a numerous amount of things that heighten stress to the point where the body takes on a very, very scary trauma. Okay? Now that trauma is recorded in the brain, and it needs to be recorded in the brain because the body knows that if that happens again, it needs to trigger you and let you know to get out of the way. Right? But if we're constantly having family issues, we're constantly having bills, we're constantly stressed out at work, we don't like our job, right? Then we are constantly being triggered all the time by this post-traumatic stress of stress in the body, stress in the house, stress in the finances, and overall, and we start to break down. That's natural. The body was designed to heal itself. And the reason I know this is that if you cut your arm, you're going to heal. So why wouldn't we do that on the inside? Why do we get diseases that kill us? Well, we keep opening the wound, right? Because if I cut my arm and I continue to open my wound, it's not going to heal. Stress is what reopens the wound. And the wound could be chemical, physical, or emotional. The brain doesn't care. It looks at an enemy as an enemy. A chemical is an enemy. A person can be an enemy. A thing can be an enemy. That's why you can have two people smell the same thing and one person might be repelled by it and the other person might take them back to grandma's house. One person is triggered emotionally, one person is stimulated emotionally, right? So it really determines on the factor of what that person has been through throughout their life. Does that make sense so far? Does anybody have any questions on that? So the nervous system is the brain's tail. Metaphysically, what that means is it's a communication source to maybe the infinite. And if it's a communication source to the infinite, then that means that if there is a miscommunication between the brain and the body, there's also a miscommunication between you and your higher power. Okay? And higher power could be your greatness, the thing that sets you apart. When we look at history, we're looking at people who have achieved greatness. What separates greatness from the average person? Is it genetics? Is it focus? Well, it could be. But at the end of the day, a balanced nervous system and a brain and a body with a good connection and a good holistic connection between soul, body, and mind is greatness. So when you're looking at Olympic athlete training, what they have done is they have focused their mind, their body, and their soul and become one. That's greatness. In order to do that, they have to make sure that all of their needs are met. They're not in survival. They're not constantly in fight or flight. When I began this journey for myself, intuitively, I was really told from a higher perspective that I really needed to get out of survival. I was a mom. I had 3 little girls. I was really worried about my finances. I was overweight. I was stressed out. I didn't really have a lot of skills, I thought, of anything that I could do with my life. And the one thing that I kept getting in my meditations when I would meditate was get out of fight or flight and heal all your fear. And as I got out of fight or flight, what I realized was that I had a lot more abilities than I ever knew. But let me ask you this. If I'm worried about paying my gas bill, am I going to be focused on creating anything? Am I going to be focused on painting a picture or running in a marathon? If I'm constantly focused in survival issues, I will not be my greatest self. And a lot of times, this fight or flight is not coming from now. It's coming from a pattern of the past. Because the brain doesn't really understand time the way that we see it. The brain just records information. And it will take you back to when you were in 8th grade as soon as that song comes on the radio. You know, a conversation that you overhear might take you into another place in time. And the brain is taking you to a memory. Okay? So the brain doesn't know if it happened yesterday, it happened now. All it knows is it knows what's going on and it's going to remind you of it. And a lot of times these things are not pleasant. So we're worried about today, we're stressed about what's going to happen tomorrow, and we are also caught in the past thinking. How many of you have noticed that you have gotten through some of your day unconsciously? Where you know how to do your life, right? You know how to get to a job, you know how to tie your shoes, you know how to breathe your body, right? You don't have to think about these things. And this is where neuroplasticity comes in, which is what we're going to talk about next. Because how the brain is wired allows you to do things unconsciously. Just like you had to practice tying your shoes and then you didn't have to think about it again. You had to practice driving your car and then you didn't have to think about it again. You had to practice getting to your house and then you didn't have to think about it again. You could just get there, right? How many times have you driven up and been like, how did I get home, right? You just get there. Like, your body knows where you live. And you're not even drunk, right? So the truth of it is the body knows how to do thousands of things unconsciously. Not just the basics. It knows how to be afraid. It knows how to get triggered when someone is rude to you. It knows how to release stress when you're in an uncomfortable situation. It knows how to gain weight when you're stressed out because it's a form of protection. It knows how to do thousands of things without your conscious control. That's how life can just happen. 4 years can go by and nothing's really changed because your body knows how to live your life. Your brain knows who you are. And until you give it a new signal, it's going to keep showing up in your life over and over and over again as the you that it believes that you are. So who are you? Who is the one that thinks, that gives the brain the commands? That's where we bring the consciousness into it. And the consciousness is where all of the change happens. And I'm going to teach you guys today about your brainwaves because your brainwaves are basically given the command by your consciousness. When you're unconscious, the body has to move into primal survival. Meaning, if you're not there, present in your life, then your body knows how to live for you. You can go on for the next 30 years, be in fight or flight, and your body will still pretty much take care of you the best way it can. Until we begin to give it a new signal. Until we begin to change our thoughts. Until we begin to set goals for ourselves and change patterns. Because the patterns will not change from willpower. Right? How many of you have said, today's the day I'm going to start my fitness program? And then it's already Wednesday and nothing has shifted. Because the brain knows who you are, it knows your patterning, and it knows that in order to change anything, you have to make real change. You have to practice change. You have to build neural pathways. Does anybody not know what a neural pathway is? Okay, so a neural pathway is just it's a communication line between the brain. So when you learn how to do something, a piece of information is now connected and you know how to do something. So when you need to learn how to tie your shoes, you practice it, you practice it, you practice it. A neural pathway is built in the brain that says tie shoes. Okay? And your body has billions and billions and billions of neural pathways. You know how to do a lot of things. And you're constantly learning how to do new things. Okay? But it takes observation and practice to build a new neural pathway. So when we go back to childhood, what did we observe? Did we observe a healthy home? Or did we build neural pathways out of fear and stress? And are those the ones that we're carrying into adulthood? Because neural pathways will not change unless you manually change them. Does that make sense? Okay? So the brain is very elastic and it's very malleable. meaning it is not set in order. It's only set in the command and program that you've given it, which means that we can reprogram it and heal anything in the body based on what commands we're giving the brain. All we have to do is get that body out of flight for that immune system to turn back on and heal that cancer. All we have to do is, start breathing correctly, and we begin to oxygenate our body and heal our circulation issues. We can heal our stomach issues. You have to think about all the things that start to go wrong when you're in constant stress. You start to get tummy issues and digestion issues and sexual issues and allergies and all of these things that we say, oh, that just happens when you get old. No, that happens when you've been fight or flight a really long time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, our goal is to be able to be in the parasympathetic nervous system and then move over to fight or flight just when we need it, or just to create, or just to become an amazing athlete. We don't want to use that to constantly be in fear of our lives, because that's pretty much where we're staying. Think about how much of your day you spend in stress, and then how much of your day is spent in joy. Real joy, ease, peace, comfort. Did you have any joy today? Do we wait till the weekends or the vacation to experience joy? If that's the case, I will tell you that your brain is in fight or flight, because honestly, if we're in fight or flight, we're not really creating anything new. We're just surviving. The body's really good at it, but it would prefer to create. Okay, that's where that creative instinct comes from, whether it's physically, emotionally, or chemically that we want to create with. So let's talk about brainwaves. The whole reason why we have MindFit here is because it speeds up this process of neural pathway creation. The neuroplasticity of the brain actually does not need to practice its way to build new pathways. It just needs to be stimulated correctly. Light, sound, music, right? We've got light therapy, we've got sound therapy, and then we've got binaural beats that actually manually switch the brain waves into the right order to change neural pathways very quickly. Now, you've all heard Susie's story. Susie's been using this device off and on for several years, and she healed a phobia of water that came from an emotional trauma of almost drowning as a child. She's lost 25 pounds. She quit smoking. These are all very ingrained patterns that most people think that they're not going to get over in their lifetime, right? Especially addiction. Addiction actually just comes from a nervous system that is in a pain and reward cycle, right? It's just stuck in a pattern. There is absolutely there's nothing wrong with addiction other than it's just a pattern, like driving home and not remembering how you get there. Your fight or flight, your nervous system craves the addiction because it's just a pattern. It's used to it. That's why addictions are so hard to break, because those patterns are very, very stimulating physically, chemically, and emotionally. Does that make sense? Okay, so gamma is the brain wave of ecstasy. Okay, gamma is the brain wave of love, excitement, joy, freedom. It's really about being those deep levels of gratitude. Okay, now not a lot of people spend very much of their day in gamma. But there's really good drugs on the market that can get you there, which is why drugs are so popular, is because everyone wants to feel that. They want to feel ecstasy. They want to feel passion. They want to feel love. Because they're every day, they're in fight or flight, and so those are not feelings that are going to be part of survival. So in order for them to feel ecstasy, they have to take something that's going to chemically stimulate gamma in the brain. Does that make sense? Okay? Now, theta brainwave is where all the magic happens. And this is the brainwave that I have been working directly with as an intuitive for a really long time. And when you're in theta, basically, you're in a place of malleability, meaning we can change patterning. We can change old belief systems. We can get through into the brain and create a whole new story to change behavior. We have to be able to be in that state of mobility in order to create that. So when I look at that intuitively, when I'm watching someone in that theta brainwave, what I'm seeing is this space of non-judgment, of this space of receiving and downloading and learning. Okay? It's coming from a higher place. It's coming from that consciousness that creates the thoughts that tells the brain what's going on. Does that make sense? Okay? So it's the place of entrainment. So when you're on the MindFit device, you're in a state of theta brainwaves that helps create a very perfect place to retrain and repattern old patterns and beliefs. Now, this is the place where we set the new story in place, or the new command. So a lot of the MindFit devices is lots of light therapy, sound therapy, binaural beats which change the brain waves, and then subliminal information. So whether you want to learn Italian, or get over a phobia, or break an addiction, or lose 25 pounds, right? You're going to have this subliminal hypnosis sound in the background while all of this other magic is happening. The reason why the MindFit device has this sound and light therapy is it actually takes your body back into parasympathetic nervous system. It takes you out of fight or flight and puts you in rest and reboot immediately. Within 3 to 7 minutes, the body moves out of fight or flight into rest and repair. Now, if I'm no longer in survival, I can learn something new. And it can be something that's positive, because I'm no longer stuck in a survival issue. So the reason why the MindFit device for me is different than a lot of this technology on the market is because it has the subliminal information, right? We're in the hypnosis state. We're in the theta brainwave. I've even seen people go into gamma in MindFit and move into ecstasy. And we're reprogramming the nervous system that I am safe. Okay? So basically, it's 4 different healing modalities in one device. It's like getting an acupuncture session. There's lights in the ears. It works on all the meridian systems of the body to release stress and to calm everything down. The lights in the eyes, light photons, that's giving the body new information and resting the body and being able to be back into that repair, reboot, even reproduce. From an intuitive and just a nutritionist over the last 10 years, I have seen so many cases of infertility. It's just gone rampant over the last 10 years. And the only thing that's causing that is constant fight or flight. Why would the body want to reproduce if it was constantly stuck in survival? Right? Male and female issues. So, here we are in theta brainwave. Now we've moved into the frontal cortex, where all of the magic takes place. This is a place of miracles. This part of the brain, they call it the reptilian brain. That's the primal brain, the oldest brain. And that is where all of the survival issues are happening. So what happens is the command center begins to move from this part of the brain to the frontal cortex, and now the brain can learn something new. It's not stuck in old patterning anymore. Does that make sense? So this is really, really important for any of the work that we do at Transcendence, because if we have a client come in and they're stuck in fight or flight, there's not a lot we're going to be able to do with them until we calm that nervous system down. You can't learn something new when you're constantly afraid. Okay? So alpha. Alpha is a brain wave that most people move into when they meditate. Okay? They also move into this immediately when you turn the TV on. Within 10 seconds, your brain goes into alpha. And alpha is an unconscious hypnosis, right? Where you just kind of are zoning out. You're not really present. But your subconscious mind is downloading information constantly, regardless whether you're focused or not. Have you ever been watching TV and just hours went by? Right? Well, you recorded all of that information, and I will tell you that your brain doesn't know the difference between whether it was real or not. So this is where I have become very discerning with my family and what we're watching, especially when we go to sleep. We don't have the TV on. We don't have the news running all the time. Because the brain will think, wow, my planet is really unsafe, so I'm going to be constantly in fight or flight just because I'm watching the news all the time. Right? Go to a horror movie. You're having fear. It's not really happening, but your body does not know the difference between whether it is happening or not. Have you had to tell yourself while you're in a horror movie, this isn't real, this isn't real? You're telling your body that. And who's telling your body that? The consciousness. Okay? So the alpha is the state where kids are usually in between the ages of 0 and 7. This is where they become like the sponge. This is where they learn who they are based on who mom and dad are. So this is where all of your childhood patterning comes from. This is where the bulk of the weight issues come from, and the insecurities, and the guilt, and the shame, and the resentment come from. These first 7 years, because basically the child is in a state of complete alpha. They're just a big sponge. Okay? So beta, and the reason I wrote it in red is because it's almost like the red light goes on. This is your reactive brainwave. This brainwave triggers defense. Okay? Now, from an athlete's perspective, this is a great place to be, but if you're afraid, it's not. Okay? So this is fight or flight. This is where you get that superhuman strength, right? You move into action based on logic. Now, the reason I say that is because the only action that the body can take is what's been programmed. Okay? The beta has no new information. So when you see an amazing athlete, it's because they have programmed that greatness in their subconscious mind, and now they're taking action on it. This isn't new. This is old, logical programming in action. Have you ever been talking to someone and they just trigger you, and you react, and you sound just like your mom or your dad, and you go, "Whoa, who's that?" And you just react. That reaction is not coming from the present moment. It's coming from something you learned in the past. It's a reactive, learned trait. Okay? Fear-based thinking, this is your primal-based thinking. This is where your survival instincts kick in. So, what survival instincts kick in when you get pulled over by a cop? Right? Do you immediately feel guilty? Like, oh gosh, what did I do? Right? Blood starts moving, right? Heart starts racing. Is there real danger? Right? Where does that fear come from? Right? So it comes from old authority issues that are now represented with the black and white car. But we're still triggered as if we did something wrong. Or we could have done something wrong. Or this is going to cost me a lot of money. Right? So we move into beta. You move into beta when someone cuts you off on the freeway. You move into beta when you get called into your boss's office to get accused of doing something you didn't do. You move into beta when you open up your bills. You move into beta when you think about old stories. When you think about worrisome things, you move into beta. Now, how much of your day are you spending here? This particular brainwave was not designed for you to live in. It will destroy your physical body. You all have a piece of paper that explains what happens when the nervous system is imbalanced. Now, the brain is communicating to the nervous system, and the nervous system is communicating to the body. It's like a circuit, okay? So if I'm in a beta brainwave, fight or flight, and I'm constantly telling my body to be here because my life is not safe, and I'm worried about the past, fearful of the future, and I'm constantly living here, my body will eventually move into dis-ease. And disease is not a bad word. It's just a body that's not at ease. It will begin to break down. You'll get allergies in your 30s, 40s. Where did that come from? Right? Things will just start to break down on you when the body was actually designed to rest and heal and reboot. It was not designed to break down. Okay? It was designed to age naturally, but not be destroyed by constant fight or flight. So when we're in beta, we are not in creation. We are not in expansion. We are actually not at the highest level of performance that we could be at unless we are only in beta for performance. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay? Now, delta. Delta is another one that most people have a hard time getting into, believe it or not. Delta is your deep, deep sleep. Anybody in here has sleep issues? Okay? So where you're not getting into that deep REM, where you're really deep, okay? If you're not getting there, your body cannot reset. Your body can't move through its natural detoxification process. It cannot stop the aging process, release the growth hormones, and clean house the way it was designed to do. And the reason why it can do this is because your mind is out of the way. You're not thinking and stressed out when you're asleep. So the body can say, great, she stopped thinking. Now let's do everything we need to do while she's out of the way. And it basically does everything that you need it to do in order to you to live another day. You live another year. So when you don't get into deep, deep, deep sleep, the body stays in flight 24/7. Anybody in here have a thinking mind that just won't turn off at bedtime? Okay? You're dumping cortisol in your system at night. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's designed to calm you down. Okay? But what it actually does is it stops the immune system, and your immune system turns on at night. The way cortisol is supposed to work is we're supposed to decrease cortisol at night because we're safe, and release cortisol in the morning for us to get into that activity and to protect ourselves from the stress of the days, going out hunting or whatever we did back then when it was designed. Okay? Again, that's the circuitry being flip-flopped. We go on autopilot throughout the day, and then we sit with our thoughts at night and they spin. That's what happens. And that's why we need a cocktail or something at night, because we just can't turn ourselves off. Does anybody have that issue? Okay? So if we're not sleeping, that's another reason why the MindFit can benefit you, is because we actually have a whole sleep series. The sleep series is designed to get your body back into that natural state of rest. Your body knew how to sleep when you were a baby. Okay? So really what we're trying to do at Transcendence with everything we do here is to get your body back in alignment with who you were before someone told you who to not be. Before life kicked you. Before you got stressed out or were in that accident or got chemically poisoned. Because once anything disrupts the alignment of the body, the computer system begins to malfunction. And your brain is the quantum computer. It is quantum, which means it has access to billions and billions and billions and billions, endless levels of information. They say we only use 10% of our brain, right? But the reason why is because a lot of the times we're spent surviving. If our survival was met and everything was peaceful in our life, could you imagine what you could create? Can you imagine the motivation you would have? Who in here lacks motivation? Who in here has fatigue? Right? Who says, well, I'd really like to do that, but I just don't have the time or the money, or, right? Because what that's saying is I really want to be who I came here to be, but my life is just about surviving. So I'll do that later. Okay? And later never comes. Because metaphysically, the brain also, it's controlling the body, but it's controlling the five senses. And so the world that you see outside of you is a reflection of what you feel inside of you. That's why two different people can have a same exact experience and have a completely different story. Right? Because their senses are feeling and seeing and tasting and observing everything completely different based on the traumas of the past. So some person can see something positive and another person could take something as a negative, and that's why we really should not care if everybody doesn't like us or not. Right? Because we might remind us of someone from the past. So does anybody have any questions on the brainwaves? The purpose of the class is for you to know what's going on in your body. Right? It's not about learning science or necessarily biochemistry, but to know that every single thing that's ever happened to you is affecting you biochemically. The food you put into your body, the thoughts that you think, the people that you're around, the job that you have, it's all affecting everything in your body. So when your body begins to break down, it is synchronistic. It's not just, oh wow, I just got sick. No. When you get sick, it's from a level of being out of balance for any period of time. Your immune system can do wonders for you. It can heal anything. But if it's not on, then it can't heal anything. Does that make sense? Now, chemically what happens, right, when we're in beta, we're releasing huge amounts of adrenaline in the body. Does everybody know what adrenaline is? Adrenaline is the thing that makes you feel superhuman. It makes you heart race, get sweaty, right? Ready for action, okay? Now, when you're in fight or flight, your body is dumping adrenaline 24/7. Adrenaline is extremely acidic. It's very acidic. Now, what adrenaline was designed to do was give you extra power, okay? So that you could get away from danger. But what if the danger is coming from your boss and you're sitting in a chair and you can't use the energy that's being pulled into your appendages to run? What's happening to that adrenaline? It begins to recycle, okay? And it is extremely acidic. Now, think I'm dumping adrenaline throughout the day, all day, even while I'm asleep because I'm not sleeping and I'm worried about what I didn't do today. Now I'm dumping adrenaline and now I become very acidic. And acid destroys the physical body. Everybody know the difference between alkaline and acid? So when we're over here in this side of the nervous system, we are actually in an alkaline state. And the way that I can describe that is when you look at a pool and it's clean, right, and the pH balance is real nice, and then you look at another pool and it's green and things are growing in it, that would be this side. Too long, right? That's when we get the parasites, and we get the yeast issues, and we get the skin issues, and the liver gets toxic, and everything begins to break down because I've had too much adrenaline running in my body for too long with no release. That's why a lot of people who begin a fitness and nutrition program begin to heal, because they're giving their body an outlet for that adrenaline. They're burning off the stress. But adrenaline is produced in the adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands were designed to give you extra power, right? They're also a sex hormone that helps recreate and get you out of danger. And if your adrenal glands are pumping all day long, they begin to fry. Okay? Most people who come to see me, their adrenal glands are shot. Now, when your adrenal glands are shot, who has to take over that job of producing adrenaline? Anybody know? Thyroid. What's the big epidemic in this country? Thyroid disease. The thyroid is pretty much not happy about this because the thyroid's job is to regulate energy. It doesn't want to do the adrenal gland's job, but it will. And it doesn't do a very good job. In order for it to really run well, it has to slow the metabolism down very slowly. Okay? And then that's when we have weight issues, and then we start to have circulation issues and blood sugar issues and all these other issues because now organs that weren't designed to do jobs are having to take over and do the job. Okay? Another thing that is highly affected by fight or flight is the pancreas. And the pancreas is what produces the glucose in the body. Glucose gives the body, the muscles, energy. Now this is great when you're an athlete using the pancreas correctly. But when you're in constantly fight or flight, the pancreas burns itself out. And what happens when you go to get surgery and they got to take your pancreas out because it's dead? Right? And that's coming from a lifetime of fight or flight. So I can actually pinpoint and put every single disease and addiction connected to fight or flight. Everything is connected to this. Because a healthy nervous system that's in alignment will be peaceful, it will be low stress, it will be a problem solver, it will be a positive thinking body, mind, right? But when we're in constant fight or flight, we begin to worry about things that are not even going to happen. I remember my husband at the time was constantly in fight or flight, and I was like 15 minutes late coming home from work. And he called me, and I wasn't answering, and I got home, and he was like pacing. And I said, "What's the matter?" He says, 15 minutes late, I had you dead in a ditch. Right? I'm going, what? Right? But see, that's how that thinking mind is when you're in fight or flight. It's in survival mode, which means I don't feel safe. My life is not safe. I don't have the opportunities that I need to create safety. And the MindFit, from what I have seen, is a very quick way to create balance. It's a very great healing tool to help move you out of fight or flight manually. Because you can't will yourself out of fight or flight. You have to change brain patterns. You have to change the neuroplasticity in the brain in order to create new behaviors, because your behaviors will tell you exactly where your trauma is. Just watch yourself any given day. What do you eat? What do you think? What's your energy level? Every one of those things can be associated with a trauma from the past. You're self-soothing, you're self-nurturing. If you have fatigue, chronic fatigue, your adrenal glands are fried. Okay? The beauty of it is we can fix all of this because the body was designed to heal itself. Once we stop opening the wound with stress, the body can begin to heal. Now, this is also great for, our desires to lose weight, but what's the weight issue? The weight is coming from fight or flight. Right? It's not necessarily coming always from genetics. Genetics can definitely trigger it, but a body that's in alignment does not have to follow predisposed regulations of DNA. It can build new neural pathways and become something completely new. So instead of having to practice every day of different thinking, we can use the MindFit. The other technology that is built into MindFit is meditation. Now, I look at meditation intuitively as an auto reset or Control-Alt-Delete. It's like a fresh start. It's like unplugging your computer instead of just putting it on rest. When you do that, you create space. You create the command that's going on here. You shut off the mind. You have to do that occasionally. Okay? Because if you're not doing that occasionally, you're not even going to know that you're in fight or flight because you don't have space from it. Does that make sense? Okay? So when you're in the Theta brainwave, you are in meditation. Okay? You don't have to stop your thoughts 20 minutes a day, go, no thinking, no thinking. You can get on the MindFit device. It will manually shift your brainwave into Theta, and you will be in a state of meditation. Anything between the time of 3 to 21 minutes is where we really want you to be able to spend in Theta throughout the day to create new neural pathways and new behaviors and clean up fear, change traumas in the brain from a negative to a positive, and start living the life that you're supposed to be living. Okay? I have seen this technology work on almost every single one of my clients that is actively using it. Okay? This is like brushing your teeth. You don't do it once. Okay? You do it enough to change the neural pathways in the brain, and then you switch the series over. So what I would recommend is doing the PTSD series for anyone who has a lot of trauma in their timeline or illness or any sort of addiction, and then move into life mastery. So then move into creation, because this device will also help you learn new languages. This device will help improve fitness, weight loss, mindset, wealth. Right? Those are all creative things. You can't achieve wealth if you're worried about money. Okay? Because it's a mindset. You've heard that before, right? Anybody who talks about empowerment and mindsets, they're talking about you have to actually become wealth in order to attract it. How do you become wealth? You build a neural pathway that says you're wealthy. You don't have the life experience that says you're wealthy, so you build a neural pathway. This is the science of the future. Because our life has taught us to not be good enough, that we're not smart enough, that we're not fast enough, that we're not thin enough. Our TV commercials prove that over and over and over again, which also have subliminal programming. So as that subliminal program is constantly telling us day in and day out that we're not good enough, why would we want to try? Right? So we have to take the position and move into the driver's seat and say, okay, I can't do this by myself. I need this help. I need to be able to quiet my mind, heal my nervous system, and change the patterns of my thinking so that I can live the life that I've designed to live. Because you know who you are inside. Does your life that you're living right now match the image that you carry within? Because if it doesn't, it's just neural pathways. Your brain has been given commands from all different people, school and society and parents, that have taught you that you're less than you can become. But if consciousness is driving the brain, then consciousness can make you put that device on twice a day or once a day and manually get your body well. When your body is well, you're not going to believe how much energy you have. Pain is not natural. I don't care what anybody says. Illness is not natural. Weight is not natural. Weight issues, under or over. Stomach issues, not natural. Stress shouldn't even be natural. There's always going to be challenges, but that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be stressful, right? And that's what we need beta for. We need beta when we're faced with a challenge, or when we want to run 20 miles, or when we want to create a picture and we don't want to eat for 7 hours. That's when we need to be in beta. Not constantly all day long, and then our mind runs rampant at night, and we can't shut off, therefore we can't sleep, and then we do it all over again. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Just random. A few things. Number one, coffee, caffeine.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We could talk about that if it's and antidepressants or medication, because that obviously is physically moving you over to that. Yeah,
it's actually chemically moving you.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And then also dreams.
Okay, so let's take coffee first. We love coffee. Coffee is a stimulant, so it's going to shift the brainwave, right? It's going to probably move you into, depending on who you are, because coffee can affect the body differently. Some people can have a very positive reaction to caffeine. Some people can have a very negative effect. I personally have a great effect towards it, but it stimulates everything within me. It just makes my body kind of come alive a little bit. It's not going to hurt this process. Actually, nothing that you're taking right now will be affected by the MindFit. I don't care what antidepressants you're on. I don't care what, alcohol or drugs you're taking. This is a spiritual bypass. Okay? So what we're doing is, when we're taking an antidepressant, what we're doing is we are synthetically giving the brain a direction that I am not depressed, right? That I feel well. But that's not actually true. You don't feel well. It's separating the consciousness from the body. So you're just not feeling your depression. You're still having depression, but you're not feeling it. So I'm all about medication until your body doesn't need it anymore. And when we begin to create new neural pathways, you will organically forget to take your medication. You will organically stop craving alcohol and drugs. So we don't need to change anything. I'm not a doctor. I would never tell anyone to get off of their medication. I believe in medication for the form of relief and for the time being until we can go in through the back door and change the programming of why we would need any stimulant. Okay? As far as dreams go, now, dreams have lots of different symbology. When you're not getting into a deep, deep sleep, your subconscious mind is running rampant. It's telling all kinds of stories. It's feeling all kinds of emotions. And you can even be producing adrenaline in your sleep cycle. Have you ever woken up and you're in a cold sweat and you're dreaming? It's because you're not getting into that deep delta. You're not turning off. Because in deep, deep sleep, we don't dream. When the body is really in that state of rest, relaxation, and reboot, the human growth hormones that are traveling through the body are working so quickly that we don't dream. We're only going to dream usually before we fall all the way to sleep, and right before we wake up would be the states of our dream cycles. And that's when we're basically having that flush of oxygen come back into the body, and we're moving back into theta from delta. That's usually when the dream cycles will happen, or messages intuitively will come, or you'll have a dream about something, or a vision. But a lot of times, it's just your organs releasing toxins. Who wakes up at 3 a.m.? Okay, well, let me tell you what that's happening. Your liver dumps at 3 a.m., dumps its toxins. And if you're dehydrated, it's going to wake you up. Because it is a shock to your blood. to dump all of those toxins of the day into your bloodstream without proper hydration. So a great way to not wake up at 3 a.m. is to drink 16 ounces of lemon water about an hour before you go to bed. And you will notice that the 3 a.m. cycle will stop, because you just need to be properly hydrated in order to support the liver that dumps at 3 a.m. Each of your organs has a different process of which they detox at throughout the night, and the liver is usually the one that shocks us and wakes us up, because it's the big one. It's the most toxic one. It carries the load and the burden of the entire body. Does that make sense?
That's great.
Great.
That's very good.
Any other questions? Yes.
Touching on the dreaming, and what about talking in her sleep? My daughter talks in her sleep often.
Fight or flight. I was a sleepwalker myself, but yeah. I would go all kinds of places. But yeah, I mean, your body is on autopilot, right? So just like you can drive yourself home and not remember how you got there, you can walk around, make yourself a sandwich, you can do all kinds of things. You're not in rest, you're not in deep rest. You're actually in more of an alpha state of you're still recording information, and there's just a detachment between your consciousness and your body.
Is it dangerous?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. That's another reason why we want to get out of fight or flight, because our sleep cycle is the most important thing next to meditation. Because without proper sleep, we age very quickly, right? Our body begins to degenerate much earlier. The body is on a central command system, grow and die, right? For women, we usually hit a peak right in the mid-40s, where it says, okay, we're no longer going to be producing children, we're going to slowly start decreasing everything, and we're going to make our long descent into death, right? So we have 45 years, okay? In a man, it can be earlier because of the stress load and burdens they carry, but it can also be later, depending. Same with a woman, right? Now, fight or flight is going to increase that, which means if you're in chronic fight or flight, you're going to hit menopause faster. You're going to have prostate issues quicker. You're going to have a lot of things that are going to happen to you faster that is going to make you feel older. So when we move out of fight or flight, we have a lot more longevity of life. We slow down the production of the death command, and we actually start to rebuild new muscle and bone, which is scientists are now saying that we actually can do through thought and belief, and by spending enough time over here. Just by breathing your body, you can heal yourself. Have you ever noticed that if you're in fight or flight, you shallow breathe, right? It's because you're scared, right? When you're hiding from a lion, you don't want to breathe into your belly, because then you'll be noticed. Watch a baby. They breathe through their bellies, right? That's actually how we're supposed to be breathing, because that fully oxygenates the whole body. Athletes train months on how to breathe, because it's all about stamina, and it's about so many different things. By just breathing properly, we can move out of fight or flight. So 3 to 5 belly breaths deep will help make you feel calmer if you have anxiety. Okay? This device is also designed to teach you how to rebreathe, because you have learned to become a shallow breather. Anybody have sleep apnea in here? Right? That's when you stop breathing in your sleep. Okay? That is constant fight or flight. So, from my opinion, everything starts from being unbalanced. Right? Anything in nature that breaks down is from an imbalance. You are nature, you are organic material, and you are a perfect organism until something disrupts you. Okay? So chemical, physical, emotional trauma is designed to heal, repattern, and regenerate. Okay? We're using this on our veterans. Okay? So one thing about PTSD that I want to add before we end off is you cannot heal PTSD through action. Okay? And the reason why is because action is what triggers the response. Okay, we saw that movie, American Sniper, right? Action triggers response. So when we go in to heal any sort of PTSD, we have to do it from the brain's perspective emotionally. We cannot move someone's physical body and take them out of PTSD, we have to go in through the emotional brain and reprogram a new command. So children of trauma, accidents, anything like that has to be done from a new neutral state in the brain where no action is taking place, because that's what makes the reaction. Does that make sense? We're also using this device on autism, on any kids that have extrasensory issues, and it's helping bridging the gap between alpha and theta, which is usually the issue with autism. Okay? I did a radio show with the creator of this MindFit device. His name is Dr. Patrick Porter. He's a genius. Okay? He knows a lot more about this than I do, but I had him on my radio show several months ago, and he talks a lot about the autism and the PTSD spectrum and what this device is actually doing as far as changing tons and tons of lives. And the coolest thing about it is that you can have this device in your home. You can always come here and use it. But there is something about having this device in your home that creates a sanctuary in your home of healing. There is neuroplasticity that says, I know how to live my life, right? A runner who runs 20 miles a day, or an athlete, will only have to walk by their tennis shoes to put their brain into motion, meaning everything starts getting ready for performance, okay? So if the brain knows by just looking at your shoes that you're going for a run, and you're using the MindFit device at home several times a week, when you pull up to your driveway, your body begins to move out of fight or flight. Your brain is the most amazing supercomputer in the universe. It knows you better than you know yourself. And when your home is a sanctuary and not another place of stress, life starts to get really good. And that's why I advocate having one in your home. I gave one to my 19-year-old for her birthday. I don't think she understood why, but she will eventually. And now her home is a sanctuary, right? Because she uses it. So, again, I cannot tell you enough that this device is like brushing your teeth. You need to use it in order to get the results. You will notice changes within probably the first week. Usually with any sort of childhood trauma or high levels of stress, we'll start in the PTSD series. That will usually calm the whole metabolism down and get the immune system working. We don't necessarily have to go right into weight loss if we have a lot of fear in our life, because it's not going to work too great, right? So we want to get the body out of fear, out of fight or flight, and then start learning new things. That's great for any age. So, all right. Well, thanks for coming, guys.